Thank you for joining us today. We are here to share our experience and insight regarding the March election cycle, specifically Heidi's campaign as selectman. I'm Karen Visda. Some of you may remember me from Heidi's last table talk. I am a retired communications professor from UMass Lowell and a good friend of Heidi's. Hello, Heidi.
Hi, Karen. I am so glad you agreed to do this again so that we can circle back around to what happened.
Absolutely. Let's start from the beginning. The first thing I'd like to ask you is, what was your experience like declaring your candidacy?
Well, what I found was that it's a really easy and simple process, and I encourage anyone who's interested in running to consider it. It's simple. You go down to Town Hall on the designated date. You fill out a very brief form. You need your ID to prove that you live in the town. They give you this brief document to fill out and a packet of information. And that information includes some dates that are important, so you know when the election is and when candidates' night is. And also it gives you information about where to place your signs and some of the campaign guidelines. I wanted to just at this point bring up a point that I think is so important, because everybody always wonders, how do all these signs go up and where are they allowed to go? Every sign that my campaign put up, we had to receive permission from each of the residents for that sign to go on that property. I think sometimes people don't realize that you actually have to ask in order for a sign to be put up. The only places that are for anyone can put up a sign are town or state property. I'm hoping in the future, to make it easier for new candidates, that the town might consider making a map of those locations, because that would have been great information to know going forward. But I do want to thank my sign team. They went door to door picking the properties, and I'm just really thankful for all of those who helped with my campaign.
Awesome. So you were off and running. You were on the ballot. We did an interview for HCTV, and you had signs up. You went live with your website and Facebook. You also mailed thousands of postcards and had several public Zoom opportunities. You really did all you could to get your message out there. Tell me a little bit about this experience.
Well, it was a really intense experience. It's a very short period of time, seemingly, but there's so much to do to try and get your name out and get people to know who you are and what you stand for, so that they can make an informed decision on election day. One of the most difficult parts of this campaign was keeping up the momentum when the snowstorm delayed the election. I did send out all those postcards, but the date was March 14th, and then everyone had to save that postcard for 2 weeks to then remember to go vote on the 28th. So momentum was an interesting conundrum that I had, but my supporters were in for it, and they really helped me keep that momentum going.
Did you find any of your supporters wavered at all?
I just found that different things happened in those 2 weeks, from travel plans that they had to other commitments. We were all focused on the 14th, so it was hard to change our lives for another 2 weeks.
Yes, and it must have been very confusing for your voters.
I think some of the voters were confused. I did hear that people came on the wrong date and to vote, and they figured out they were out of town, going to be out of town, but didn't go get their absentee ballot. So there were a lot of things going on, but I'm thankful for all those that did go out and vote.
So what was your favorite part of the election process?
Oh my gosh, I definitely enjoyed meeting and getting to know so many of the community members on a more intimate level. I loved not being judged by my party affiliation, but by what I said and what I brought to the table and how I interacted positively with people in sharing my ideas and what I hoped to do as a selectman.
What was the best thing about running for office?
Oh my gosh, I felt so supported. The number of people who said they wanted a change and saw me as the right next step for Hudson was so uplifting and appreciated. Their comments and support just propelled me to do the best I could to get my message of transparency and responsibility out to the voters. I knew I could help unite the various committees and factions within our community if elected. I have to tell you, standing in front of each of the polling places was very humbling. It was humbling when elderly individuals that I had never met wanted to cross the street just to shake my hand, that they had received my postcard, they had watched my interviews, and thought I was the right next person for the select board. And it was just really exciting to me to realize the reach that I had through my campaign.
At one point, you mentioned something unexpected happened to you at candidate night. Could you share that story with us?
Yes, there were two interesting parts of candidates night. It's the night where the public can submit questions. You can either email them or submit them that evening. And the moderator then selects the questions that will be asked. And everyone who was on the ballot was there. So there were actually 7 selectmen candidates, 4 for the 3-year position and 3 for the 1-year position. And I found it interesting that of all the candidates, I was the only candidate that had a question directly stated to me for Heidi Jakoby. No other candidate had a question directed directly at them. And I guess that just threw me because I knew afterwards several people came to me and said I had direct questions for other candidates, none of which of those questions were chosen. The other thing was a general question that was asked about whether any of the candidates around the table had ever been involved with a lawsuit with the town. And I was one of the few who said, yes, I had, and I was very proud of that. I was involved with a right-to-know lawsuit, which ended up with a brand new policy for the town, which enables citizens to get information more easily, and the town now has a policy that gives them an easier way of gathering that information. So having that lawsuit made a huge difference in transparency and responsibility. And what I think a lot of citizens do not realize, if you disagree with a decision or believe a decision was made in error by the Board of Selectmen or another committee of the town, the only recourse you have is to take the town to court. There is no other way for a citizen to go and say that was a wrong decision or a bad decision. The only place a citizen can go is to take the town to court if they believe a wrong has happened. It's just the fact, it's how our government works. So going to court over an issue that you believe is wrong is always your right.
That's important for your viewers to know and understand.
Yes, and I think that's been this misconception over the lawsuits that the town has that have come before the town. But if you really feel you've been wronged by the town, it's your only recourse.
It's the best way to communicate with your selectmen.
Yes. Well, and you know, Karen, that's a really good point. Prior to going and starting a lawsuit, we had months and months of conversation with the town trying to reconcile the issue prior to going to court.
At the board meetings?
No, actually directly with the town administrator and the selectmen, as well as the town planner and different departments of the town. So I do believe you work hard at resolving it before going to court, but if it's not resolved, court is your next option.
And when you say we, there was a small team of people that you worked with on this particular issue.
There was myself and 3 other citizens who brought this case.
Who all felt there was a wrong that needed to be corrected.
Correct.
And you worked together to go to the courts and resolve, which is Very impressive.
Yes, and we ended it up with the settlement, which settled on a new policy for the town.
Very nice. So we all know that in the end, you lost the race by 68 votes, and you requested a recount. Can you tell us a little bit about your decision to request a recount?
Sure. There was a lot of controversy around why I requested a recount. The night of the election, I actually lost by 70 votes. And the next morning, I had many people saying that I should ask for a recount. And I knew with a lot of research, I had to research how I ask for a recount, what are my rights around a recount, because that information wasn't given it to me when I declared my candidacy. So I had to seek that out for myself. With that, I discovered that because of the margin that I lost by, the recount, I would have to pay a $40 fee. And that in the documents that I found, the select board would handle the recount. So I said, since my supporters thought I should do a recount, and I also found out that there were 268 votes that were non-votes. So what that means is 268 people came out to vote on March 28th and chose not to vote for anyone in the 3-year Board of Selectmen position. I had no idea that people would come out to vote and skip over categories. So I really felt there was a possibility there was an error. So for $40, I decided to ask for a recount. And what happened was, because I didn't have a full understanding that the moderator and the Board of Selectmen can decide to hire people to help with that recount, I didn't realize that there would be additional expenses. So in the end, they had 8 teams of 2 handling the recount. The Board of Selectmen made a judgment on any questionable ballots. The moderator ran everything extremely efficiently and very well. And in total, the recount cost $365.48. Because so many people, citizens and some elected officials, said I was wasting the taxpayers' money on this recount, I chose to donate $325.48, the balance of the cost of the recount, back to the town, for the town to use as they would like. I think it's important for people to know that a recount is my right, and I exercised my right on a recount, and I gained 2 votes. And the best part of that recount, as you know, Karen, is I was able to ask 8 of my friends and/or supporters to come and monitor that recount. All 8 of those people were so thankful that they were a part of the recount process. They said they learned a lot. It affirmed our voting system. It affirmed a lot of things for a lot of people. So I feel that that was money well spent, and the observers appreciated it. For all of you to know, I was not an observer. I made sure that other people observed for me because I do trust the system. And the one other thing that happened that night that I think it's important for me to mention is that the evening of the recount, I personally felt a lot of hostility in the room from others who were not my supporters. Both hostility from some of our elected officials and hostility from other citizens. I really want to continue to be as professional and kind as possible. And I don't think anyone who chooses to exercise their right for a recount deserves any hostility. They deserve professionalism from everyone.
That was very unfortunate. I was one of your observers and appreciated being part of the process. My question for you now would be, what shocked you the most about the recount process?
I really just mentioned that. I was shocked that individuals, including some of the elected officials, made comments about me wasting taxpayer money. when I just was exercising my right to a recount. And I want you all to know that during the recount process, a number of things happened. And I addressed those at the April 11th Board of Selectmen meeting. I addressed them in my public comments. So I would really recommend you to go to that Board of Selectmen meeting of April 11th and view it for yourself to see how my comments really affected the rest of the meeting and the response I got from our elected officials. That Board of Selectmen meeting will be on my website at HeidiJakoby.com, along with my written statement that I presented that evening. I want you all to know that throughout this process and after that April 11th meeting, I did request a conversation with Selectman Morin, Selectman Dumont, and Selectman McGrath. Both Selectman Morin and Selectman Dumont responded to my request, and we have begun a productive dialogue, and I'm really excited to continue that dialogue with each of those selectmen. Unfortunately, at the time of this recording, I have not heard back from Selectman McGrath, but I hope to hear from her soon.
So, what's next?
Well, I've been keeping very busy. As you know, I've continued to help the Hudson community. I am meeting with different volunteers and chairs of different committees. I actually stepped out and have joined the General Federation of Women's Clubs, the Hudson, New Hampshire chapter, and the Senior Center, because I'm over 55. I've chosen in my life right now, I have time to be more active in the town, and being a part of the Women's Club has given me a window into all the opportunities to volunteer, and especially to all the needs of our community. We have many people who continue to volunteer and are passionate about Hudson, but we need more people to volunteer and share their passions, gifts, and skills to continue enhancing the town of Hudson. By reaching out to the committee members and volunteers in town, I hope to share what I discover with you on a regular basis. I'm finding that a lot of people have questions about how things work, but they're not necessarily asking the right people. So I'm going out and asking who I think are the right people and finding out that information, and I hope to share that with you. The more I speak with people, the more I realize that communication and dissemination of information to our citizens is very difficult. Currently, I am looking at different communication possibilities for our community. So I'm asking you a question. If you have any interest in having a conversation with me about Hudson and how you can get involved, or to learn more about what I am up to, please reach out. I would love to have a conversation with you about communication, information dissemination, or volunteering to help our community. Again, my website is HeidiJakoby.com, and there is a contact me button on that website.
Thank you very much, Heidi. This was very informative.
Thank you, Karen. I hope that we can do it again soon and share some of the discoveries that I've made.